I've always told people, and I've been telling people, I only have one thing, and the main thing, and that is I am out to accomplish and achieve the 4 goals and guardrails. That is all that I'm about. In fact, I already did 100 days when I became interim, and so my next 100 days is not going to be made up of sitting down and talking to people. It is actually going to be boots on the ground, start running, start cascading what's happened with the work that we've done around the goals and guardrails into the departments, into the school sites, because like I said, I only have one goal, it's to achieve those. So, while we were kind of on 2 tracks this year, right? I had taken all of our goals and narrowed it down to 2. At the same time, also knowing that we were going to be doing student outcomes focused governance work. And what I've noticed is people are a little like, because we are a district that has so many goals. And so it was just, oh, grab this, then go grab this, and then grab this, right? And so I'm constantly having to go, nope, that's all we're doing. Don't bring anything else in there. Like, don't create more goals. Don't create other things, other distractions that are going to come in. That is all that we're doing. And in fact, as soon as our board got the goals and the guardrails, I started taking them straight to our executive team and our departments to say, as we go through this budget season, it's going to look very different. Meaning you're going to have to really look at the things that you're doing before, and if it's not in alignment to these 4 goals that we're going after, then you're not doing them. And that makes it really hard for people, right? Because they say, sure, we want focus until they actually have to get rid of some things so that they can get to the focus. So I'm a parent in our district, and when my child started in school, he in 2nd grade, he was not at the 2nd grade level. He was actually 1st grade level, and so my expectation is that he gets the appropriate scaffolds and supports to get him, by the time he leaves 2nd grade, to get him on 2nd grade level, right? And so the interventions is not that we're going to be giving students below grade level work. In fact, if a student comes in and we keep giving them below grade level work, they're never going to get caught up. So the goal behind that intervention, why that early intervention goal is so critical, is that if a student is behind, what you do is you continue to give them grade level work, but you put in appropriate scaffolds so that they can quickly understand and they get right back on grade level. The biggest scaffold is provided by the teacher in the classroom. So if I'm a student and I'm an English learner and I don't quite understand the concepts that we are reading when we have a high quality text that's in front of me and I don't quite understand it, right? The scaffold would be, so I'll use myself as an example. When I was growing up, I would get a lot of passages and we would read about, I remember this one time I took a test, and the test was about a family who lived in a 2-story house with a white picket fence and a dog. Well, I don't live in a white picket house with a dog. I have no clue what all that, and the family would have picnics out in the front yard. Well, my family didn't do that, right? So my teacher had to explain, oh, this is what a white picket fence looks like. This is what it is to have a 2-story house, because I never lived in a 2-story house. I lived in an apartment. And so that's when I said the appropriate scaffolds are put in place. So if you got a passage that you're giving to a student and the student has no clue what some of those words means, well, you need to front load those words ahead of time so that when the student gets to that paragraph and they're like, oh, I recognize that word because I was front loaded ahead of time what that meant. So that's what it means. It doesn't mean that, oh, you give a passage to a student that is below. you actually give them the grade level passage, but what you do is you front load them the information so that when they get it, they can actually understand and translate it. For some of our students, it may mean that I didn't speak any English when I came in, and so I was lucky that in second grade I had my teacher got a tutor who spoke Hmong, and the Hmong person translated it for me, and so that when I read it, I'm like, oh, I understand what you're saying because he just translated it for me. I think that the most skilled people to do this work is our teachers. And I say that because I highly value their expertise. If you or I are going to go out and have surgery, well, we're not going to go get surgery from somebody who's not a specialist. So the specialist in the classroom is the teacher. That is the specialist. That is the person who knows our kids the best. But I understand that in a day, a teacher is not going to be able to get to I mean, if you have a classroom of 30 students, that's going to be very difficult, right? But I have seen teachers in our district do it masterfully, like small groups where they have students. I was just in a classroom 3 weeks ago where the teacher was doing the most amazing scaffolding. She had about, I think I counted 28 students in the classroom, and I was able to pull up her roster to see, and they were all varying levels. But she was doing this. She pulled the students that were the farthest below grade level with her. She had some students that were accelerated. Those students were actually teachers teaching a partner with them. While it allowed her 30 minutes during the day to work with her most struggling teachers, and then she had students that were able to work on their own, so she had them doing projects. And then she had some other students working on the computer. And that was masterfully done. And in fact, I said, hey, would you like for us to get like a tutor to come in and help you? And she said, no, because if anything, I want to make sure I'm the one working with my students who are the most needy. Now, and then she said, now I have an aide that comes in. So I have the aide work with my students who are in the middle and who just needs that little bump to push them forward. But that's what I'm saying about like it can be done. We just have to become very creative with it. Now, do we have other supports like tutors? Yes, we do. We have teaching fellows. We have, there's all kinds of supports that can come into the classroom. But I will say to you, there is no greater expert than the teacher. So I know I'm one person, right? So there's no way I can get to 70,000 students. But I do know this, is that the personal connections, and if we all built those relationships and made those personal connections with our students need to have a reason why they come to school, right? And so I'll give you an example, and then I'll talk about like how we can scale. On a weekly basis, if I will go and I will notice that, so certain students have not been coming to school, right? And so what I will do is I will pull it up and I'll go, let me just go do a little home visit. And I'll show up. And at first they're a little shocked that I'm there, right? And so they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, I'm just here. You haven't been in school. I love and care about you. Do you need anything? And then they're like, okay, we'll be fine. And then but I don't just show up once. I go back again. And I go back again. And by the time I go back the third time, they're like, yeah, we'll be there. And then they start showing up at school because now they know that somebody cares about them. And not only do I do that, but I make sure that family or that child has somebody at the school that they can connect with, because they've got to have a reason. Our kids come from different life circumstances, and they can't help the life circumstances that they have been dealt with, right? And so how do we scale this up? Well, we've got 10,000 employees. We have 70,000 students and 10,000 employees. Can you imagine if every single one of our employees just took a moment to stop a child and say, hey, I noticed that you weren't coming to school. You were absent the other day. Do you need help with anything? Do you have anything? I mean, I know of teachers that the moment a child doesn't show up at school on the second day, they're making a phone call or they're showing up at their home. And I'm not saying that everybody gives up their life and not have any kind of life balance to do all that. But I'm saying that what I'm saying is the relationships with students matter. Last year I took a ride on the bus. I rode the bus with one of our drivers. And I have to say, as I'm sitting with the bus, because I actually did a whole entire full day route, and what I noticed that was very different about that driver and what kept happening was he didn't just stop the bus and said, all right, kids, get on the bus. He stopped the bus and he stepped outside of the bus. And then as kids were coming onto the bus, he was shaking their hands. And he was saying, hey, come on, chin up. What's happening today? Why do you have the hoodie on, right? And but what I noticed when I was looking at the routes was that driver's kids, they get on that bus every single day. And the reason why is because they want to see him. And so attendance matters, and especially in a time where we are in declining enrollment and our average daily attendance has not picked up. And depending on the circumstances that our families are going through, there's got to be a reason why kids come to school. I mean, I think about my own 15-year-old. He goes to school because he plays volleyball. And and in middle school, it was playing in band. And so, we have to nurture whatever it is that gets our kids to school. I think, I'm looking at okay, top heavy as in how, because I think that, as we've been making cuts the last 2 years. And the first place where we cut was administration, and we cut district. So it was right now we have not touched school sites. We're going to be committed to that because we want to make sure that our school sites have everything that they need. Positions that have been frozen or positions that have been cut have come from the district office. And I will say, as we continue to cut, we are going to cut as much as we can at the district level before we touch schools. And so when you think about it, that is a part of protecting what we need to give our schools, the necessary supports that they have. Do I think that we are very top heavy? I think I looked at, I'm in the midst right now of looking at org charts from other large urban school districts like ours to see how are we compared to other districts, and then really thinking through if we were to redesign, what would that look like? Because we are going to have to do a redesign if we are going to move towards our 4 goals and guardrails. And that is what the board has charged me with. In fact, going through this budget season, they have said to me, Superintendent, you need to convince us that the budget that you are bringing forward is a budget that is aligned to our goals and guardrails. And it's the same thing as I'm looking at positions that we're hiring for or things that we're doing is everything that we're doing, hiring, investing in alignment to the 4 goals and guardrails, because those are the most important things for the next 5 years. I don't know yet. I don't know yet, because I'm still digging into looking at everything, and I don't want to make any decisions that are knee-jerk decisions. I actually want us to go, I'm a firm believer in learning by doing, meaning the only way we're going to learn if something is working or not is if we're actually doing it, and then we figure it out along the way. This year, I had no clue walking into the interim role what student outcomes focused governance was going to be. When our board said, okay, we're going to go and do this. And so what did I do? I just read more than anybody else. I watched everything and looked up everything that I could find on that. I reached out to school districts that were doing it and said, what were the mistakes that you made? What were the landmines that you can tell me, don't step on this, right? And And a lot of it was learning by doing. I tried something and then I would go back to the team to go, hey, you guys, we tried it. I don't think it's working. Let's try something different. And so to answer your question, I'm not sure yet. Okay. I've had a lot of learning in the last 11 months, and this is what I have always, this is what I believe in. I truly believe in accountability. And accountability, because we have a system for accountability. That's our supervision and evaluation process. It's our due process, right, that we have in our system. Now, the accountability also has to come with psychological safety, right? If you want people to try, and think about what we're doing right now, right? We've always been a district of so many goals and we've narrowed it. And so now I'm trying to get everybody, inspire everybody to move towards this. And the minute somebody makes a mistake and I weaponize it against them, no one else is going to be able to be willing to try things that are innovative because they're going to be scared. And so accountability also has to be coupled with psychological safety. No one wants to work in a place where they don't feel safe or where they feel like, am I gonna, go out on a ledge and do this and jump off the cliff and really try this, and then no one's gonna be, grabbing onto my hand as I'm doing it. And I've been telling people, I am gonna push us across that cliff, but while I'm pushing you on that cliff, I've grabbed you and you can look and I'm right there with you. Yeah, so we're in a kind of a unique, weird place, right? I guess weird is the word that I can use to describe it because we built these goals and then we're also doing the budget at the same time. And so actually it's kind of like we're building the plane, we're flying the plane, but we've got things that have already been in place because of the budget timelines that and the school site plan timelines that we are held to, right? And we've got these goals and interim goals and guardrails, and some of it is not solidified because some of it we don't have the data for yet, right? And so it is really hard to describe in that we're going with a budget that is going to be approved, hopefully approved by our board, and hopefully I do a good enough job with that. But we've got these goals and guardrails that we're still trying to iron out as we do it. But the beauty of the budget is that even like with our contracts and with the things that we're doing, there's nothing that says we can't make shifts. And so while we do have to approve a budget so that people can plan for things and people can move with, whatever work that they're doing, there's nothing that says that while we are learning and doing this, if we just make some discoveries, we can't make some shifts, in the middle of the year. And I think that is something that people are uncomfortable with, because we have been a district where, well, we made this decision. And I'm pushing people to say, well, I know we made this decision, but at the time that we made this decision, we were not getting these results. And because we're getting these results now, we're going to have to make those shifts, right? So I think the hardest thing, if you were to ask me about what is going to be the most daunting work about the student outcomes work, is going to be the mindset shift of people. Because as human beings, we like things set a certain way. We want things to be predictable. We want to know what is coming. And with this work that we're going to be doing, it is going to be, just like the conversation you and I had around interventions. A kid, you coming in as my student, I may try something, and then it may be like it worked, and then 3 weeks later, it didn't work, so I have to find something different. And that is going to be what's going to be happening with this student outcomes work that we're doing. So, when I wanted to, if we can, we would do everything, right? But that's where we've been as a district, is we've been trying to do everything and not anything well. And so we are going to focus on these four. And in it, so when you think about literacy, like a lot of the math that happens requires our students to know how to, they have to be able to read. A lot of the problem solving skills, right? So if we can get kids to read, they're going to be, the math is going to start to come in, because now when I open up a problem and I'm reading it, I can actually understand what the problem is asking me to do. And so those, like people see reading and math as two separate things. Actually, they go hand in hand. They are very closely tied together. And so I absolutely know that if we can get 80% of our first graders to read by first grade, because what happens is when a child is able to read, then they can read to understand. And so much of the math is reading to understand. I mean, think about like the problem solving and the performance tasks that students have to do. And so that is going to be built in. And the way the goals and guardrails are built in is they're built in for 5 years, but there's nothing that says that the interim goals and guardrails can't change. So the minute we meet an interim goal, we're going to be able to, change that. And in fact, in one of our goals, we actually built in math. I think it's in our college and career readiness one, because that is one that is a key holder for our students. So keep in mind, when we built it, like I said, we were like doing two simultaneous things, and so what we are, if you go back and you look at the effective staffing guardrail, it is not a guardrail to get rid of people. And I want to be very clear with that. It is actually a guardrail to build capacity of people. So if you go back and you look at it, it says that before we can remove anybody, before we can say, we don't believe you are a right fit for our system, it clearly calls out that we will put interventions in place. We will put support plans in place for you. And the reason for the language around the lateral is if we keep moving people, right? Like if someone is struggling, if I am struggling and I keep getting moved from school to school to school or department to department or whatever, well, there's not consistency for me. And so what it is to say, we believe in you in so much that we're going to invest in you and we're going to put in support plans, because the goal of it is for you to be accomplished and successful in our district. And that is like I think people read that guardrail and they misunderstand it, because they automatically go to it's going to be evaluations, it's going to be this, it's going to, and even our evaluation system also calls out that before we go to remove somebody, we have to have done our due diligence to support them.